Greetings again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of OSI Today, the podcast featuring news and views from around the Office of Special Investigations. I'm Wayne Amon from OSI Public Affairs. August 1st, 2023 marks the 75th anniversary of OSI's inception. Throughout the year, the command is commemorating the occasion based on the theme, inspired by our past, OSI's future starts today. And with me to discuss how the Office of Special Projects fits into that scenario is Special Projects Executive Director, Mr. Lee Russ. Sir, welcome to the program. Great to be chatting with you again.
Thanks for having me, Wayne. Super excited to be here.
And of course, with this being our 75th anniversary year, lots of things going on and whatever. But I'd like to kick off, if we can, sir, with Special Projects, the questions for you. Getting a little bit of history for our novice listeners who may not be familiar with OSI or with Special Projects. Now, Special Projects was activated back in 1978. However, to reach its current iteration, it was realigned in 1992. How did that all come about?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks again, Wayne, for having me. I'm excited to talk about OSI's Office of Special Projects with you today.
Yeah.
The OSI Office of Special Projects, as we know it, became institutionalized with the activation of what we called Region 7 back in 1992. Mm-hmm. But before that, if we take a glimpse into the past, OSI PJ began as only one agent detailed to an office within the U.S. Air Force's Special Projects Office, which at the time was called RD for Research and Development.
Right.
And just a happenstance, as they created a bunch of offices in that RD, the office symbol that the OSI agents were given at the time was RDPJ.
I see.
So this is actually where PJ comes from. Huh. This one agent supported, at the time, the U-2 and the SR-71 programs. Right. But as the Air Force added additional special access programs, PJ's presence within the Air Force Special Projects Office continued to grow. And that's when, at the time, Colonel Forrest Singhoff, who was the 9th OSI commander, appointed the very first PJ commander, who was Colonel Richard Troyer at the time.
I see. So
the Air Force continued to add more programs over time as technology advanced, and PJ continued to grow, eventually became what we knew as Region 7 in what you referenced in 1992.
I see.
So that was part of the larger OSI effort, the first major reorganization that OSI had undertook since their activation in 1948. So the reorganization reflected a larger Air Force reorganization due to a downsizing of the force. The Air Force was considerably downsizing in that time. So the next major change occurred in about 2008, when the Special Access Program mission was split from Region 7, and the Office of Special Projects, now known as PJ, was activated.
I see.
So since 2008, OSI PJ has seen significant growth, with the largest growth occurring around the 2019 to present time, where we've grown to over 400 personnel across 52 field offices within the United States, Hawaii, and Germany.
And I would imagine, sir, with the rapid development of technology these days, Special Projects, or PJ as called, as you mentioned, is really burning and turning every day, and never a dull moment in the world of PJ.
Absolutely, we're a very busy organization supporting commanders around the world.
And speaking of that, PJ has 13 primary customers, including United States Space Force and 7 major Air Force commands. Sir, what unique challenge or challenges does that diverse responsibility present for the folks in PJ?
Yeah, this is a great question. And working in the Special Access Program world it's extremely complex. We're ultimately protecting the departments, the Department of the Air Force, which includes both the Air Force and the Space Force. We're protecting their most sensitive technologies. So most of the work we do is classified.
Right.
There's also many different aspects of program security, or what I like to call integrated technology protection,
I see.
that makes the overall protection of, say, like a B-2, the stealth bomber,
Right.
and all of its components extremely complicated. Um, Additionally, as you mentioned, we have a diverse customer base, including all the MAGCOMs, the Air Force MAGCOMs. I believe there's 9 of them,
Okay.
and the 3 Space Force field comms. A lot of customers, very, very diverse customer base, and we interact with military members and government civilians at the highest level of those organizations.
I see. I would imagine flexibility has to be a calling card for the folks in PJ as well, with those kinds of diverse responsibilities all at once that you guys take care of.
Absolutely. Yeah. Flexibility, they say, is the key to air power, but I
Right.
believe flexibility is also the key to space power.
Well put.
We also work regularly with our partners within the defense industrial base,
Ah, I see.
and both civilian and military decision makers from our partners and allies, even overseas.
Uh-huh.
Um, so in this complex environment, we serve as the advisors on special access program security at all levels, and we oftentimes have to be the bearer of bad news.
Oh, I see.
So every senior leader in the Air Force, in cleared industry, and amongst our allied partners have different objectives, right? As you would
Right.
imagine.
Right.
And there's many times where those objectives don't align with PJ's mission or objectives of SAP security or delivering uncompromised technologies to our warfighter.
Uh-huh.
Some have priorities of speed and money, where our priority is security.
Right. Right.
Um, but oftentimes it's a tough conversation when you have to tell a program manager or a program executive officer that we have to debrief one of the key members of their team because of maybe a polygraph issue or
Right.
an unauthorized disclosure or a mishandling of classified information. But we're an independent organization, so we serve as both an oversight role and also an advising role to provide that independent advice to Air Force and Space Force decision makers.
Right. Now, you mentioned sometimes you have to be the bearer of bad news. I harken back to my early days in the Air Force, where when we have to, be trusted counsel to various leaders, and sometimes you can't tell them what they want to hear, but what they need to know, I would imagine. Is that a pretty fair assessment?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah, the independence is key. Really giving them ground truth and recommendations to protect their program.
I see. Now, with headquarters at Joint Base Anacostia Bowling in Washington, D.C., Special Projects' mission is to provide multidiscipline security and special investigative services for selected Department of Defense and all of Department of the Air Force Special Access programs. Now, given all that responsibility, what's been PJ's key to successfully accomplishing that very important mission in your view?
Wayne, without a doubt, the key to PJ's success over the years has been our people. PJ brings in a ton of high caliber personnel who are really, really excellent at their work. And working to protect such sensitive and critical technologies it's extremely rewarding. And I think the combination of these two things makes for an excellent work environment. And leads to a very high retention rate. Very rarely do we see people trying to leave the organization to move on to something else.
Right.
And I believe we have probably the most diverse workforce within any organization within OSI. And by that, I mean we have 5 different government job series for civilians. We also have 5 different active duty career fields, all working to protect our department's most sensitive technologies.
Wow.
So, that diverse workforce creates a community of thinkers who are able to attack very complex problems from different perspectives, right? And give our senior leaders and decision makers the best possible advice when it comes to integrated technology protection.
Right. I would imagine. I'm sorry, sir, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I would imagine you also value the input from your field PJ members as well. The ones who have the boots on the ground.
Absolutely. I mean, they are the ones that are protecting the programs in the field. We're not doing that at headquarters. I'm not doing that day to day. It's really the workforce in the field that's protecting those programs.
I see. Moving on now, what are some of the more notable mission milestones that special projects can reflect on that have defined its very distinguished legacy? I know lots of, again, you can't talk about a lot of stuff that you folks do, obviously, but some of the more notable mission milestones in your view, from an unclassified nature that have really given PJ a great foundation over the years.
Yeah, when I think of legacy and I think of history of the organization, I think of PJ's protection of the U-2 and the SR-71
Mhm.
missions.
Right.
So a handful of OSI agents provided security and counterintelligence expertise to protect what I'll call two of the greatest intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or ISR platforms in the history of mankind.
Hmm.
Um, both of these aircraft flew highly classified and highly dangerous missions
Right.
throughout the Cold War, and OSI agents and security specialists helped keep these two aircrafts cloaked in secrecy, while our government, the U.S. government, used them to collect ISR missions over, the Soviet Union, North Korea, and Cuba
Yeah.
during that
Yeah.
time. An interesting fact that maybe some of our listeners aren't aware of is the U-2 was used to first spot Soviet missiles in Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Wow. Okay.
Those nuclear weapons that the Soviets had put in Cuba. And that was back in 1962.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not only were we protecting the existence of that aircraft, but we also had to protect the creation, the shipment, the storage of a special fuel type that was created specifically for the SR-71.
Huh.
So it's not just the aircraft itself that we're
Right.
working on to protect, it's all the support structures that go along.
Right.
So
And
I have a second vignette that I'll walk.
yeah, sure.
Um, Most of our listeners have probably heard of the F-117 Nighthawk.
Hmm.
This was another milestone program that OSI PJ helped protect. So during the Cold War, we couldn't afford to match the Soviets tank for tank, right?
Yeah.
But the second offset was the advances the U.S. made in stealth technology. So we didn't have to match them tank for tank.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I would encourage everyone to go and read the history of the F-117, which was the first operational air asset designed with stealth capabilities. So a huge breakthrough in technology in the United States. But if we walk through the timeline, the program began in 1975.
Hmm.
It began initial operating capability in 1983, but was kept under strict secrecy for many years.
I see.
It wasn't until 1988 that the program was publicly acknowledged, and not until 1990 when it's made its first formal public debut or its first public appearance.
Uh-huh.
So that was about 15 years that PJ personnel protected the program, and it remained hidden from prying eyes and prying spies.
Right. Well, it certainly sounds like over the years, Mr. Russ, that PJ has had a very profound effect on the global stage and world events that you can really look back on and say, hey, we were part of the successes back then, which is really, I would imagine it gives you a lot of pride to look back on something like that.
It absolutely does, and really those first few programs that we've kind of walked through have served as the stepping stone for other stealth aircraft, right? Such as the B-2, the F-22,
Hmm.
the F-35, and now just recently publicly revealed was the B-21, which
Right.
continues to protect all those assets.
Right. And once again, technology keeps changing and advancing. So PJ is right there at the forefront of it all.
Absolutely.
Now, Mr. Russ, let's turn our attention again to people, if we can, shall we? Who have been some of the more significant contributors to PJ's success throughout the years? I'm sure the list is long and distinguished, but as you look back, who are some of the folks who really made their mark in PJ and making PJ such the great organization that it is?
Yeah, the list is extremely long, but
Right.
I think it would be appropriate to recognize all of the people, past and
Right.
present, who have worked in PJ.
Uh-huh.
Um, when you asked me before about the unique challenges we face, I kind of laid out in a little bit of detail, but we really do have an incredible challenging job. And a lot of the times we can't talk about what we do. We can't share the details of our day-to-day mission because of the sensitivity of the world demands. We can't always tell our family what we do.
Right.
But it's really because of the significant contributions to national security that sometimes can't be recognized until years after the fact, and sometimes can never be recognized.
Right.
But just some of the platforms that I mentioned before, we've done amazing things to protect capabilities, to deliver uncompromised capabilities to the warfighter.
Mm-hmm.
And it really fits in perfectly with our motto, which is Secretum Conservo Populi, which translates to protecting the people's secrets. And that's really what the men and women of PJ do every day, right? We protect our nation's most advanced technologies.
Right. No doubt about that, and a very distinguished legacy has resulted as I say, as a result of the great work that you folks have been doing over the years. If I can, sir, let's look into your crystal ball a little bit, shall we? And how would you characterize the future of the Office of Special Projects? We mentioned the diversity and changing constantly of technology. As you look ahead for PJ, what do you see?
Yeah, this is exciting. I really think, and I view the future of OSI PJ as a bright one. I first came into PJ in 2006, and I've seen tremendous growth in the department's special access program enterprise. And with it, we've been afforded a corresponding growth in our own personnel. So as I mentioned, we started with one OSI agent detailed to a very small office at the Pentagon.
Right.
And now we're about 400 and about 430 personnel across 52 field offices. The expansion has been a direct result of our department senior leadership recognize the value that and the amazing work that PJ personnel bring to the fight.
Right.
I'd say that as the Space Force matures and expands, and as our Air Force continues to evolve within the special access programs, to win the great powers struggle against our adversaries, we within OSI PJ will continue to grow and evolve with the department. I'll add that the amazing collaboration with our national and allied partners over the last few years has been a significant force multiplier. And I expect that'll only get better and stronger going forward. Right. But being on the cutting edge will continue to allow us to recruit high caliber people. Right. And we'll do our best to help the United States maintain the technological superiority that we enjoy today.
Well said. Now, Mr. Russ, before we wrap things up, is there anything else you'd like to add about being part of OSI's 75th anniversary observance this year?
Wayne, I'd just like to thank you again for giving me the opportunity. As always, it's great chatting with you. But I'd also like to thank my PJ family. PJ has done and continues to do amazing work every day. Our diverse cast of professionals is constantly solving difficult and complex problems to help protect our department's most sensitive technologies. And it's fantastic to lead an organization where I get to highlight those efforts to senior leaders in our department and the interagency every day. I truly believe OSI has a very rich history, and I really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to tell our small story and contributing to the larger OSI history and the OSI story.
Well, it's always great to chat with everybody throughout the command, and PJ is right up there with them all, no doubt about that. Our guest has been Mr. Lee Russ, the Executive Director of OSI's Special Projects. Mr. Russ, thanks again for taking the time to be with us. Always great to chat with you, sir.
Thank you, Wayne.
And thanks to all of you listening for tuning in. For OSI Today, I'm Wayne Amon saying so long for now.